My name is Jakub and I'm a blogger and reporter based here in Warsaw, Poland. Today my job is to tell you how to use many tools to tell one story. Before we begin, I want to introduce you to my colleague and to my assistant, to be honest, Jakub. Jakub is down there. Jakub? You're okay? Ready? Perfect. Are you ready? Are you? I hope you're saying something right now, because if not, this is really awkward. Okay. I divided this presentation into 7 parts to make it easy for you to go through with it. Let's begin.
So I became a freelance reporter and a blogger because I was amazed by the power which all the new tools were offering me as a creator. And as an individual, I could do many, many things. But I want to relate something to what was said before. As much as I am a huge fan of all the people broadcasting, I'm also a huge fan of everybody listening and everybody talking to each other. And you know, communication is a two-way thing, and we should not forget about it. When I think about my journalistic work, and the mission behind it is to create a platform based on truth, which allows all the sides to actually get together and talk and take whatever topic is it to another level. And this is very important to me. Now, as you can already see, I'm a huge fan of using different tools. Whenever I start to work on a story, and I actually, as an individual, I have to try even harder than big media outlets, because it's just me. I don't have the natural reach, I have to be very creative, and those tools allow me to be very creative. What's really important is what I learned with time, because I started as someone who is fascinated, is sometimes using not every tool is good. You have to think about the law, where you're going. For example, with drones, you have to think how much you can carry, what is the electricity, if you have signal, and so on and so on. And based on all of this, I make a selection of tools which I'm going to use. But before I make a final decision, I actually think about 2 more things. One is about platforms which I want to use. This is very important because the tools I just shown you, they generate some kind of medium. And is it bolded? So, platforms. You know, we have many platforms right now, and they are hugely influencing the publishing industry in a good way and bad way, and a way that deserves a separate speech or a conference. But for me, as an individual, I observe big publishers who also struggle to be everywhere. So it's very important that when you have tools, you actually think about what you can do this. And there is so many forms which you can do on various platforms. You see here, there is at least 6 on Facebook. On Twitter, you have 3, and then you have a small brother. That's really pixelated. Well, but this is a bird. You have little brother, Periscope, which allows you to do live video. And it goes on and goes on. And just imagine that you are in a field and you have to produce all of that. So before you actually do that, you have to think about what you can accomplish. And as much as it's nice to be everywhere, I think it's nice to be somewhere, but really good, than everywhere average, or just suck at it. Because it's really hard to pick up. And I haven't mentioned all of them, you know, but there's many, many platforms which influence the work I do. Of course, you can have your own platform, and we have been seeing this shift from cross-media to transmedia to multi-platform right now. And when you think of a story, you have to think of it in a different way. Because as much as I'm a huge fan of tools and platforms, the story always comes first. And you have very simple questions which I ask myself before starting to work. It's what I'm trying to tell. It's who is my hero, if there is my hero, and what should the reader know. And now when I have the story, the tools and the platforms, I try to think what is my final production in all of it. And sometimes I go for, even though I like when everything is fancy and there's lots of fireworks, sometimes I go for the very easy approach. Because it's the aim of the story. 2 years ago, I worked with Polish lifeguards, and the idea was to portray 10 different people about why they become lifeguards and decided to save the life of others. And it took us many months to work on it, to spend some time with them, just to find some stories and try to understand what drives them to become those people and risk their life. And we decided that we want to show it by people, not because there's over 70,000 lifeguards in Poland. And we just portrayed 10 of them, various age, various experience, different background. We focused on the water and the mountain lifeguards. And sometimes you are just lucky because after living for a while with this guy, and actually let me zoom in to this way. His name is George. George is one of the legends. When I was speaking on the phone to one of the guys who was helping with the project, I had the feeling that he's saluting when mentioning this guy. And I lived with him for a couple of days in mountains in the highest base in Poland, and there was this picture. You see this picture of a helicopter here, and it kept hanging. And he was just like, first day he said, yeah, you know, this chopper went down on that hill. And then he said, yeah, I was present. Next day he said, I was present in the area when this chopper went down. And then a third day, he finally said, you know what? I actually was on that chopper, and I jumped off of it from around 15 meters straight to the snow. So I took him there to take his picture because this is exactly the spot in the 80s when that chopper went down. This is like a lifeguard chopper. And it takes time, but with this story, it was really time-consuming in terms of to get to know them and to actually portray them in a way that makes the reader relate to the life choices they have made, because they are good, the consequences are good and bad. Now, it's really important, and it was already being said a little before here, is that what I also try to do is that when you think of a story, it's not only about the final piece, final, I don't know, reportage, video you're trying to make. You can help yourself and engage people in the process, actually, of what you're doing. This is really important because you don't have to think that you have to tell the same story on the same platform, just adapt it a little bit. You know, you go to Instagram and you just make pictures. You go to Snapchat, and for example, using spectacles, you can actually engage people in the process of you working in the story. This is also really important because there are two kinds of it. I think one is just showing the making of and getting people excited about what you're trying to do and showcasing how you work. This is, I think, really crucial right now because what is really happening, I believe, with the fake news is not the amount of it, it's just that we don't know how many actually is them. So we start to lose trust in the whole system. And one of the things we can do is, and it was what Time was trying to do, is to show how they made a mistake. So in a way, when you show how you work on a story, you're also telling this to your readers or to the audience, so they see the process behind it, and they understand your methods. And they actually can sometimes help you. They can explain you something, they can give you tips, and then they become excited about because you keep them engaged and you have them waiting for your final production. The other thing is that if you have a main story, which is writing a story, let's say a text article, it's not that hard to start showing things which you also do. This is Budapest. This is a Serbian-Hungarian border in 2015, September, during the biggest wave of the refugee crisis. And I was working on a story there, and we were anyhow researching the things. And next to me, there was a lot of TV reporters, and I'm not criticizing them, but they were just showing up for 60 seconds going live. We were broadcasting live for an additional hour or hour and a half. And we've had thousands of people following the live streams. Just because this was an additional thing which they were seeing, how are we talking to those people? What are we asking them? They were also suggesting questions. People had so many questions back then because the question became: do you want refugees to take in, or do you want to, or you don't want to take them in, without understanding what is actually the problem. We also use Snapchat for it. When you were just walking through the border, and it's not working. And we were also doing, back then, Periscope. That was only a year and a half ago, so there was no Facebook Live, and Periscope, which is now like old memory, was not allowing panorama videos. Now, when you think about mixing this and producing the final interactive reportage you have in mind, I discovered one thing, is that throughout my education, I have picked up one bad habit for all I'm trying to achieve. And that bad habit is that when I write a story, I do it on a piece of paper, and it goes from top to the bottom. And this is how I was taught in school. And this is really not the way I should have been approaching whatever interactive I was doing. Actually, I switched my thinking that this is a premiere, which is a video, but it goes from left to right. And if there are some parts of the story, I use different media to tell it. So there is a simple sentence. I traveled from Greece to Macedonia. And you can show it with a map. Just you write your story, you take out the things which you can show with a different medium, whether it's a map, an audio, a video, or something else. And the idea, that was another story which I was working on, which was the Balkan route, which is now closed, but it was, in 2015, it was one of the routes, I don't want to say most popular because it sounds bad, but the highest amount of people traveled to Europe from Greece through Balkans and then to Austria and Germany. And in some cases, and I wanted to portray this in a way, this is a little bit more traditional approach, but give the possibility to engage people with images, with videos, and sometimes when I was just talking to some people, and I remember what I wanted to say, I asked people to draw it. And this is a linear approach. But in other cases, if you have so many informations, you don't have to go for the linear approach. This is actually a try of summarizing 150 years of the history of tango. It's too much. It's too much. Even though long form is doing quite okay right now on the internet, we wanted everybody to be amazed at the first sight when they go there, to see what is waiting there, so they can browse through the whole thing. Now, what can go wrong? And this is something which happened to me a couple times. So the biggest problem with technology and with all that fancy stuff is that when you have a hero or the topic of your story and you start going crazy, producing all the external materials, it's very easy to lose the focus of what you are actually trying to accomplish. Because especially when you are using the tool for the first time, you are always making a mistake. And you are discovering new features of it. And then you find yourself that you were trying, well, I wanted to show a bigger picture, but, well, where is my hero? You know, he's gone. Or you violate the privacy laws. So the other problem is that, being a single individual, I don't have that much of a budget no problem. I don't have that much budget, for example, to buy pictures. And this is an interactive story. We found the problem that we wanted to show a list of the most important events during last year, but there was a problem with pictures. And even getting like the cheapest, the low quality was lots of amount of money, almost 40 events we selected. So instead, we said, okay, well then let's draw it, you know? Like when you have a news image is not about, please don't take it the wrong way, the news image has to be combined with a story. When there is a story about Leo Messi shooting a goal, you don't see an artistic picture of a ball, you see Leo Messi. So it directly relates and it's parts of the coverage. But the great thing about the images, and this is something which we're trying to do more and more, is that they actually boost, they resonate with different points of your mind, and they actually want your imagination to work. So, and this became because you wanted to guess, okay, what's that? Is that Trump or not? I mean, is that just me not guessing it, or is the drawing that bad? But you are getting engaged through it with a different manner. This is, for example, protests in Korea in December 9th last year. So this is, drawing is also, this is actually a map of one of the refugee camps, which I just made as a node, which later on was turned actually into interactive showcase of how life in that refugee camp actually works. And it started with just a simple drawing, which later on digitalized. And now, publishing. When you are an individual, you have to combine many jobs. Not only being a journalist, a producer, a travel agent for yourself, a researcher, and so on. But publishing is not the final act. It's actually the first part of a new process. This is when the distribution begins, which is also very important, because you may have a really nice story, but then you end up on those platforms in algorithms, or you have to buy a lot of ads in order to do it. And there are some things which can help you when you think of your final story, when you want to engage the audience. Now, I'm a huge fan of breaking the rules, as long as I know the rules first. And I talk about the rules that, pictures make story 19% more engaging, and that comes from a research released last year by American Press Institute. Videos make story 43% more engaging if you have in it, which I find, like, when there is like an autoplay in an article, I hate it. But maybe that's also counted as engagement. Or I'm that 55.7%, which doesn't find it more engaging. But when you combine those different forms and tools, such data can help you. Someone discovered that long stories are 23% more engaging than others. Like, long form is, for a long time we thought it's dead, but it's actually not. So this is why I decided, okay, I mean, I do believe in people. I do not believe in statistics in a way that I produce long stuff. Everybody tells me that no one is going to engage into this, but it actually starts to work, because this also brings the trust. I'm not in the business growth of, I'm not in the business model of traffic growth. I'm in the business model of building trust. So everything I do, showing the process, making of, engaging people through different parts of the story, is only to build a connection between me and the audience and to establish a trust, which later on transfers into people reading and hopefully getting excited about whatever we're trying to accomplish. Sometimes simple forms are enough. This is a live discussion about the Białowieża forest, which is part of ongoing debate in Poland. And it is one of the first moments when actually all the sides met. And it was actually in that forest, broadcasted by us live. And it generated dozens of questions, but I loved the feedback which we received after it, is that it lasted almost 3 hours. People talking about the forest. And because people had the opportunity to ask a question and finally get the whole picture. We were not, sometimes you have those, you think in a way that, Sometimes you think, here, when you do a live video, you don't have any borders, time-wise. You may think that there's going to be a drop and so on, but as long as you're mission-driven, don't care about the drop. Just go through with it. People will come back, watch it later, and so on and so on. So publishing, it's only the beginning, and that work with interactives is only the beginning. But for me, it's all about building a trust as an individual, a freelance reporter. And the final message.
Thank you very much. Here, somewhere here, you can find social media links and email how to reach me and Jakub. We actually share all that stuff together. And let's all thank Jakub. Great job.
Thank you. So as it was said, 15 seconds, as it was said, if there are people from Estonia, from Kosovo, from Bosnia, Cyprus, find me. I will be looking for you through the app and so on. If you want to talk about interactive storytelling or reporting, I'll find you, but please also find me. Thank you very much.